whenever you launched your YouTube campaign, what was the spark? Whenever you put the video up online, was there a spark that made it very popular on the internet?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. When we started this YouTube campaign, our intent wasn't to be the #1 hit on YouTube. Our intent was to provide something valuable and usable to our employees, to our customers, to our business partners. So we put the website up on day one. The first thing we did is we set out an announcement saying, by the way, guys, here's some interesting videos you might find useful. We sent that to our employees. We sent that to our business partners. We sent it to our salesmen to pass along throughout their channels. And that's how it started. Nothing big, nothing bright. It was targeted for those audiences, and that's exactly where we started. And it exploded from there.
But it was word of mouth internally in the first instance?
It was word of mouth. We did put up one blog post on dig.com, and people who blogged just naturally picked it up. And so it just really, literally took off virally. But our most important audience were our employees, our customers. It's the thing that everybody has access to in this room.
Do you know how much you have to spend to get a Google account manager? How much you have to spend on Google AdWords do they have, or is it determined by other criteria?
I think the question has to do with the fact that Google does offer service that Google will assist you, particularly with pay-per-click advertising, provided that you do have a sufficient spend. The numbers that I'm seeing are varying, but typically I would say you're needing to spend probably between £7,000 and £12,000 per month in order to get a person to help you with Google. That said, if any of you are doing pay-per-click and you do require assistance, there is an excellent Google call center that you can get in touch with, and they will talk to you even if you're not being account managed, if that makes sense. So do keep in mind. The other thing I would suggest to you for pay-per-click is that Google does have a vast array of online training materials that you can take advantage of. And indeed, they have a program that if you want to learn about pay-per-click, you can go through a structured training program that leads to a Google AdWords accreditation. But that is something that you could participate in and do if you really wanted to get to grips with your AdWords. And to conclude, if you don't manage your pay-per-click advertising correctly, you will be hemorrhaging money. It's not just a question of bidding higher prices. If you say, I'm willing to spend 10 pence, Google will say, fine, and it'll put you in position 2. If you say, oh, I'm willing to spend £5, Google will still say, fine, and leave you in position 2. Does that make sense? So spending more is never the answer.
Regarding the social networks and management of those, the Comcast, realistically, since there seems to be a new one every week, in terms of resourcing this, practically, how is that managed, and what, if you're a small company, what sort of time and resources are you looking at allocating to managing social networking?
Sure. I mean, this is why it's really important to plan a strategy before you just dive straight in. Because there'd be nothing worse than announcing to the world that you were on Twitter and you were here to help people, and you've got Fred in the back office with like an hour a day to man it, and suddenly he's got thousands of incoming requests coming in there. So that's why you have to think through what the implications might be, particularly if you are a company that's got high demands on customer service and your customers do need a lot of support, or if your products are a bit dodgy and people are going to complain to you, you do have to be ready for that. One of the key things to do is to not just kind of silo it within the marketing department, because often it's marketing that is first switched on to social media. I think the companies like Zappos, where they empower absolutely everyone in the company to use all of these tools, they've got a better chance of being able to resource it because there's a greater number of people, basically. So I would say think it through and try and distribute it as widely as possible and open up the company so that more people have access to customers, even if that feels a bit unnatural if you're used to having messages carefully controlled going out via a comms department.
Our company manufactures and supplies software, management software to the farming community. And we would find our typical, consumer would be in the 50 plus category. Now we know they use computers and internet, because if they don't, they can't use our product. But we would have a question or concern over how many would be using social media and how we could tap in there. So, have you any suggestions or any advice on that area?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the kind of the direct answer to hand about exactly what their use would be like. But your product's a web-based product, is it?
Not quite, but they do need internet.
They do need internet access to be able to use it. Yeah, so you've got probably a better than average chance than other companies who are targeting that kind of age group. We do end up making kind of generalizations, and companies like Forrester do specific studies to find out specifically for, say, people in a particular industry like farming, what their use of social media is like. But what you could try doing, if you've already got a customer base, is try surveying them, or just as part of your normal account management program, just start asking customers what they're using. Are any of them on Twitter? Are they using Facebook? Are they interested in reading blogs? And try to get a sense of what people are using, and then based on that you can start to build a strategy. But I think it touches upon sort of a wider point, which is around the use of social media for business to business. So I think it's the big examples that get the most press. Probably most of my examples today were business to consumer. A lot of people think, yeah, but I'm selling kind of big systems to other companies. How does that work with social media? But the truth is, it's just as valid for business to business, because even in a business to business context, people are buying from people. People don't buy from a faceless corporation. They buy from their sales representative who they build a relationship with. And so the tools are just as equally valid for B2B as B2C. But I would say, in answer to your question, just talk to your customers, find out a bit more about what they're using and what they're ready for, and then basically plan a strategy based on that.
And I think the answer to this is probably how long is a piece of string, but on average from your client base, from an average size or a small business coming from a standing start with maybe a brochure site to having a fully functional e-marketing strategy, what kind of timeline is involved?
Can the string answer stand? No, it's usually a couple of months, and it really depends on the first thing that has to happen is you write the strategy and what works for you. If it happens with this gentleman's example, farming community, we would prioritise. Social media would be fairly far down the list for us on that one. Email marketing, because these guys are going to have email. And then other forms of the areas around the bubble that I had up there, I start to prioritise those, and then pretty much reverse engineer from budget as to what is practical, what is the search spend, what is pay-per-click, what is all of that, and segment it and figure out what's going to work. But it can be anything depending on how much input you want to give and how much we would have to do as to length of time, but anything from a couple of weeks to a couple of months is typical.
You've organised as an organisation an event like this. You can see that it's been very well attended. Are you up with the curve in terms of your provision, in terms of your advice for people looking to develop in this area?
Oh, absolutely. We have an e-solutions, an Invest in Irish Solutions Centre, which is in Bedford Street. And my area of expertise would be online marketing. I'm very, very much interested in that area as a whole, and pay-per-click and search engine optimization as well as e-commerce and selling online generally. And anyone here would be very welcome to come down to our centre to talk with myself or another advisor and find out a little bit more. We, for example, can look at quotations that you're getting from suppliers to see to make sure you're getting the best deal, etc. And all our advice is completely impartial. We've nothing to sell you. So we're just keen on making sure that you get the best deal for your organisation.